All right, so fill in the blank. Wedding planning is...
Overwhelming.
Stressful.
Okay. It shouldn't be overwhelming or stressful, but let's try another one. When planning a wedding, what's the first thing you should do? Nothing? Got nothing?
Maybe let's just get into the episode and we'll find out.
Good idea.
If you're planning a wedding and want all the secret tips for a smoother wedding day experience, then stick around as we interview some of the top professionals in the wedding industry. We are Coastline Studios, a fun-loving team of filmmakers who specialize in creating custom wedding films alongside some extremely talented people. Welcome to Let's Talk Weddings. Today, you're in for a treat as we have an industry-leading event designer and planner on set. Alicia from A Day in May Events has done weddings and events on every scale, from huge million-dollar affairs to intimate backyard weddings. Get ready for some killer tips.
Well, Lish, thanks for being here with us today. I've been looking forward to talking with you, so thank you.
Me too. It's so great to see you guys and also have a chance just to sit down instead of running around an event together.
Yeah.
So looking forward to chatting and talking shop.
And I'm excited because this session is going to be one of those sessions that anyone planning a wedding at any stage, you pretty much have to go through or would recommend going through the steps you're going to talk about. Is that correct, would you say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Being engaged is about enjoying your engagement, not just planning the wedding. So we want to give them some tools to get there.
What are the things you should do when you're starting?
So at A Day in May Events, we start with kind of 4 topics, and these become the cornerstones, just like building a house, right? You can't build a foundation unless you have 4 corners to build upon. So we start with our guest count. We start with the date or approximate idea of what that date might be, your location or venue, where you want to host the celebration, and then your budget or your overall investment commitment, and what do those look like? So those are our 4 cornerstones that we start with.
So let's unpack those a little bit. When you start with your guest count, do you invite everybody or how do you stop?
That's a really great question, Josh. Well, you also want to set some parameters, right, on your in-laws or your family for who they might want to invite. But that's a great question. We always say to start big. Make a guest list and think about everybody who's been a part of your life and don't hesitate to include them on that list. Chances are you're going to end up with a number that maybe is a little bit bigger than you wanted to, but we build everything in an Excel document for a reason, and that's because you can sort it and you can also prioritize. So start with yourself or your fiance. Make a list of those people from your family, friends, college roommates, coworkers. Put everybody on that list to start. Then think about whether or not you're going to extend family members, either your in-laws, future in-laws, or your own family, whether you're going to extend potential guest invites to them as well. As I said, I think you'll find that that number is going to increase pretty quickly, but it's always better to have a list of that. And plus, you've got a Christmas card list to start once you, if you can't invite everybody. Start with putting everybody down first, and then I think that kind of is a natural segment into what is the reality that you actually want to have, right? So from your guest list, depending on your location, so where are your guests traveling to? Where do you want to host your day? That's also going to be a factor that you want to take into consideration about what your physical venue can allow. What is the maximum occupancy you can have? Or if you're having a wedding at home, how big is the land that you can put a tent on? Or how many people do you want to celebrate with? Is another way to look at it too.
And how do you go about picking a date or a time or a season? Is there a formula how do you help people through that?
Yeah, that's such a great question, John. We find that a lot of our couples come to us and they already have this vision, and it's typically tied to that location that they want to get married. And so since we're in northern Michigan right now, many people like to come here when it's 75 and sunny and that perfect up north day. Well, there's only so many of them. So as we look at our seasonality, if they want to come have their wedding in the summer, that does kind of limit us, obviously, to the number of weekends that are available. When we start to couple that with how do we pick then maybe what date works best, we recommend to our couples to be flexible. If you don't have the availability to have your wedding at home where you can choose any day, time of the week, or month that you want to have your celebration, you're often limited to those other couples who've already made those choices and maybe occupied that venue at a certain time. So I recommend for them to stay optimistic, right? So to keep their options open in terms of what works best for your work schedule. If you really want to have a Saturday wedding because you want to have maybe most of your guests are traveling and it might be difficult for them to take a Friday off, then be in mind of that. Or maybe you really want to have a Friday wedding so that way you can enjoy the rest of your weekend with your guests. So I think keeping a little bit of your options open to give yourself an opportunity to be set up for success versus being disappointed if a date isn't available is always a good thing.
So once you do have a venue booked, you kind of have to go back into that guest count, and that, I'm sure, helps you wheel it down a little bit, right?
You're totally right, Josh. We call that reverse engineering in wedding planning. So maybe you have your heart set on this amazing venue, you find out it's available, but the guest count is a maximum 150. And that guest list I told you to build, and then your future in-laws have added to, and your family's added to, and now you're at 300. Well, guess what? You've got to whittle that guest list down a little bit. So when we also think about the limitations of maybe what that looks like in terms of having to make sacrifices, think about it now as an opportunity to really focus on who you want at your special celebration. There's always time to connect with friends, whether it's picking up the phone or sending a happy birthday message. Don't feel like because you had a connection maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago that you need to bring that relationship now back to the forefront. It's okay for people to kind of come and go into your life. So think about now in the present moment, who's going to be a really good guest for you and your fiance to have as you make that commitment of your life together. And moving forward too, who might be a part of your future life as you guys start your new journey.
That all ties into budget, I'm assuming, right? You want to talk about, that was the fourth pillar. What is the fourth cornerstone?
Budget's my favorite conversation. We often use the expression your investment commitment. That's another little bit maybe softer terminology when you're thinking about that scary BE or that budget word. It's a little bit of a very codependent relationship between those four things. So between your guest count, your date, your location, and your budget, they all are playing into this algorithm as you go through the planning process. Yeah. Josh, like you just mentioned this reverse engineering. Those factors come into playing a game of catch together. So when you think you might have your guest count nailed down, you actually might decide that there's a very important piece of that overall investment commitment that you want to spend more on because you might really have this amazing videographer that you want to bring on, but you need to free up a little bit more monies from some other place because you want to add another resource for a memory that you might have. So now you might decide to shave down some of those guests, or you might decide to not necessarily book a certain a la carte option with your venue because you want to free up those other resources. Again, planning a wedding is dynamic, right? So it's always changing. Every new conversation you have with a vendor about a service that they offer, or maybe a new type of flower that just came on the market that you're in love with, or you just have to have those diamond encrusted earrings because they go so perfectly with your dress. It's okay to have those feelings of desires that you want to include them, but take a minute to just reevaluate what's most important and make certain to keep your partner in mind throughout all these decisions. So I think that's one really important point, John, when we talk about a budget, is that you're going through this process, this planning process together with your partner. And it's your partner and you that are making those decisions. So being honest and upfront and being real is incredibly important. So when you have that venue and you find the place of your dreams, and they can only accommodate, like I said, that certain number of guests, don't look at that as a limitation. Look at that as an opportunity to be more connected. And now you've set a pillar. At this point, you've set part of that cornerstone in place, and you know that it's not movable, and you can rest assured that now, I've made it through that first step, and now I can move on to the next.
Wow, we've covered a lot so far, but would you stick around for a part 2 with us?
I'd love to. It's fun to see you guys. Love to talk more.
And if people want to get a hold of you, how best should they do that?
You can visit our website, which is adayinmayevents.com. And also, we have a contact form there, or feel free to reach us on our office line, which is also there as well.
Awesome. And thanks for tuning in today. And be sure to check back as we do part 2 with Alicia and A Day in May events. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us today on Let's Talk Weddings.